Ask just about anybody in Ashgrove, and they'd tell you the same thing. That old barn behind Marta Vane's place was junk. The boards were half rotted, the roof sagged in the middle, and nobody had opened the door in, going on 20 years. A few neighbours even offered to knock it down for her, free of charge. She always told them no. And she never told them why. She never mentioned the thing her husband had hidden under those floorboards, the thing she'd been guarding all by herself for 20 long winters. So, the morning a stranger finally lifted that lid, the men who'd spent 20 years laughing at her barn stopped laughing for good. But before that makes any sense, you've got to go back to the start. If you like stories about ordinary people and the quiet kind of strength nobody notices, do me a favor and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. All right, back to Marta. Ashgrove was a small town in eastern Nebraska, the kind of place where folks decide who you are early on and don't much bother changing their minds. Marta Vane was 73. She'd lived on the same 40 acres for 51 years, ever since she married a soft-spoken man named Eli. He'd passed 20 years back, his heart just quitting one ordinary Tuesday while he mended a fence. After the funeral, the whole town waited to see what the widow would do. Sell, most figured, move to town, let the developers have the bottom land. She did none of it. She stayed, ran what she could, and every time somebody offered to pull down that eyesore of a barn, she gave the same answer: the barn stays. Behind her back, they all had theories. That grief had made her strange, that she couldn't let go. Not one of them had it right. Marta wasn't holding on to the past. She was protecting something she'd promised on a cold night 20 years back that she'd never let the wrong people find. To the town, Eli Vane was just a farmer. Corn, soybeans, a few cattle. A man who tipped his hat and said little at church. But Eli had a whole other life, and it lived inside that barn. In the long winters, when the fields slept under snow, he'd head out before sunup and carve. Not the way a man whittles to pass time. He carved the way the old masters did. Decoys, songbirds, mantle clocks. Every feather cut by hand. He never sold one in Ashgrove. A couple times a year, a quiet buyer drove out from the city and left with a crate wrapped in wool. Eli tucked the money in a coffee can and never said a word. A man shouldn't have to explain what he loves, he told Marta once. He just ought to do it well enough that one day it explains itself. Here's what the town never knew. Far from Ashgrove, in the circles where people collect this kind of thing, the little name Eli carved into every piece had turned into a legend. Collectors paid sums for his early decoys that could have bought half the county. And in his last winter, sicker than he let on, Eli built one final thing, a cedar chest. He filled it, buried it under 3 floorboards in the back corner, and took Marta's hands. When the time's right, the right person will come. You'll know him. He won't ask what it's worth. He'll ask who made it. She kept that promise for 20 years. The trouble showed up dressed as concern. His name was Grant Holloway, and he worked for a company buying up all the bottom land around Ashgrove. Marta's 40 acres sat right in the middle, the last square on his map that wasn't signed. The offer was low, insulting. But Holloway had done his homework. He knew the widow was old, alone, behind on her taxes, and that the county had flagged the barn as a derelict structure. Fines were coming. That barn's going to cost you either way, Mrs. Vane, he said. Demolition orders coming. Sell to us and you walk away clean. Marta looked at him a long while. The barn stays. But that notice was real. And for the first time in 20 years, she understood that saying no might not be enough. If the county tore the barn down, strangers with machines would find what was under those boards before she could protect it. So that night, under the same lamp Eli used to carry out to the barn, she made a call she'd been putting off for 2 decades. Not a lawyer, an appraiser. His name was Daniel Reyes, and he drove 4 hours because something in the old woman's call made him cancel everything else. Marta unlocked that barn door for the first time in longer than Daniel had been doing his job. Inside was nothing like he expected, falling apart on the outside, spotless within, tools oiled and hung in perfect order, and up on a shelf, one little carved wren, left there 20 years ago. Daniel picked it up, he read the little mark on the bottom, and Marta watched the colour drain from his face and rush right back. "Mrs. Vane, do you know who made this? My husband? Eli. He set it down like it had gotten too heavy to hold. He knew that mark. Every serious appraiser of American folk carving knew it. It belonged to a maker the whole field had spent 40 years trying to name, a ghost, and Daniel was standing in his workshop. Marta knelt in the back corner and pulled up 3 floorboards. Underneath, in the dark, sat the cedar chest. Inside, wrapped in wool, was the finished life's work of a man the world never knew it lost. 12 carvings, the real masterworks. A leather ledger with 40 years of records in Eli's careful hand, and tucked in the binding, the original 1919 land grant with the mineral and water rights to the whole bottomland. Rights that were never sold. The same rights Holloway's entire project depended on, and had just assumed a confused old widow didn't know she held. Daniel did the math the way an honest man does. Slow, then all at once. The carvings alone were worth more than every house in Ashgrove combined. The rights were worth more than that. Mrs. Vane, your husband didn't leave you a barn full of junk. He left you the very thing they said you were a fool to keep. Word gets around a small town the way water finds a crack. The auction was held that spring, and Ashgrove came. The men who'd offered to tear the barn down. And in the back, in his expensive coat, Grant Holloway. They watched the carvings Eli made in a barn they called an eyesore sell, one after another, for numbers that pulled the air out of the room. Marta sat up front in her plain grey dress, and she didn't gloat. That was never her way. To Holloway, who hung back till the room cleared, she said just one thing. "You saw a pile of firewood. My husband saw what it could become if somebody was patient enough." That was always the difference between men like you and men like him. She didn't sell the farm, she fixed up the barn instead, and turned it into a little workshop where the county kids come on Saturdays to learn to carve. The eyesore of Ashgrove became the one place every parent wanted their kid to be. Marta Vane is 80 now. That workshop is still going. There's a carved wren over the door, the one Eli left on the shelf, and under it a little brass plate that reads just 3 lines. Made here, by hand, on purpose. The barn they all call junk is still standing, and it'll be standing a good while yet. So before you go, tell us in the comments, what's the one thing in your life other people never understood the value of? We read every one, and don't let anybody tell you that what you love is junk. Some of the most valuable things in this world are just waiting on the right person to open the lid.